So, a little bit of an introduction to myself before we get started on all things Blue Sky. My name is Alison, and I run a social media consultancy called Avocado Social. We've been in business for 11 years now, and we are a very small remote team, but we do some great work with some fantastic organizations and brands, as you can see. So we are social media trainers, consultants, and we also run paid campaigns as well for our clients. So I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do later on, but I've worked in the social media industry for 15 years now. I think I started around the time when you used to poke people on Facebook. Do you remember that? And so I've seen a huge amount of change, apps coming and going, things getting popular, strategies working and then not. So social media is one of the most fast-paced industries I'm aware of. And so you do have to keep on top of all of the new social media trends and tools. And that is why, of course, that we're talking about Blue Sky today, because it is an up and coming social media platform. It is one that a lot of us have kept an eye on, particularly since Musk took over X. So let's find out a little bit more about Blue Sky today. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for letting us know where you are. Oh, hi, Brownsea Island, one of my favourite places to go. Lovely to see you with us. And yeah, lots and lots of you all over the UK today. So we'll do a little intro to Blue Sky. How many people are using it? What is it? Why did it get created? And then we'll talk a little bit about Blue Sky for charities and non-profits. I'm going to talk you through how to get your profile set up if you haven't already. And also we'll then go on to talk about a few different kinds of styles of posts and what's possible on Blue Sky. Of course, as always with these online sessions, there'll be plenty of time for Q&A. So if you do have a question as we're going through today, please do leave that in the Q&A section on Zoom. You can find that by clicking more if it's not showing on your Zoom menu, and it's called Q&A. And that's where I'll be looking at the end of today's session to find your questions. And then lovely to see the chat so active already. And I welcome you to keep commenting and keep letting us know your experiences with Blue Sky. But before we go any further, we're going to actually run a quick poll because it's always very interesting to see who is using Blue Sky. So if you wouldn't mind just ticking whether you are using a Blue Sky, whether you have a profile but you're not using it, or whether you're yet to explore the app. So you should see the poll pop up on your screen right now. So I'll just give you a moment to make your selection and then we're going to reveal the results. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to just looking at the chat there, no option for glued to it. So let's have a look at those results then. Let's have a look and see how Blue Sky is faring for us. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we've got a pretty fair split there between a few of the options. Yes, we are 54% of you. And then the other options, no, not yet, or we have a profile, but we're not using it, are actually quite close. So it looks like the jury is out on Blue Sky. So let me take the rest of today's session this morning to actually convince you on some of the powers that be on Blue Sky. So first of all, an introduction. So what is Blue Sky? Why did it get created? It actually started as a little project at Twitter. So it actually started from the HQ of Twitter back when Jack Dorsey was CEO. They said that social media is too important to be controlled by a few corporations. We're building an open foundation for the social internet so that we can all shape its future. Interesting. So it was a little bit of a side project, actually, and there was a dedicated team working on Blue Sky within Twitter, which is why it looks very, very similar to Twitter, particularly early days Twitter. It is what's called a decentralized social media app, and that essentially means it's owned by the masses. There is not one clear owner or profitable corporation that is behind that, which means that decisions get made in a more democratic way. And also, there isn't kind of danger then of like one company owning a huge amount of data. It's open source, so you can build on it, which means that using the Blue Sky framework, if you have the knowledge and the skills, you can create side social media platforms or communities yourself using the infrastructure. And that's called an AT protocol. Pretty techy, but it's important to know it's open source, which means they are very upfront about things like user numbers. They are very open to sharing kind of how the algorithm works, which is unusual in the world of social media. That's not something we've ever really seen before. It started as invitation only. So, does anyone remember when you used to have to get an invitation to join Blue Sky? I remember those days and they were like gold dust. So, it's all everybody was talking about 2 years ago. And so now it is open, anybody can create a Blue Sky profile. And it's lovely to see so many of you sharing your Blue Sky profiles in the chat too. So thank you for that. And I am going to go through the chat and start following all of you as well. So as you can see over on the right, it's very similar looking to how Twitter used to look. Posts are predominantly text-based. You can upload images alongside. A lot of people are using it in a very similar nature to how they were originally using Twitter. You can drive traffic back to your website or to other websites that you want to, such as news websites, etc. And there's a lot of people in the charity and not-profit space using Blue Sky as well. At the moment, there are, as you can see here, 40 million total Blue Sky users. So that's not crazy amounts when you think about some of the sizes of some of the other social media apps. We're talking billions on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So it's certainly not a big player yet, but they are really, concentrating on its growth over the coming years, and they seem to be adding a lot of safety and moderation tools to the app, which again kind of sets it apart from some of the other Meta-owned or ByteDance owned. So I was trying to think of the company that owns TikTok as well. Threads, if we think about Meta's kind of alternative X platform, has 400 million monthly active users. So Threads is a lot bigger. And X has 600 million monthly active users. So Blue Sky is the kind of smaller baby. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't work for you in terms of targeting the people that you want to be targeting, getting conversations going. And by all means, 2026 is going to be the year of community. A lot of people are talking about these smaller, more active, juicy communities in social media rather than the kind of mass market stick a post on your Facebook page and hope as many people see it as possible. So we are seeing a shift in behavior more towards these private, more trusted and nurtured communities. And that's why I think Blue Sky is in a very good position right now. They have hit 2 billion posts. So there's been over 2 billion posts shared on Blue Sky, which is pretty cool to see. And you can follow Blue Sky for updates on user stats and also new features as well. One of the things that I really like about Blue Sky is that you can choose your own algorithm. You choose what feeds you want to see. So you can dip into things like interests and set your interests, which are based on kind of themes. You can also discover new feeds very easily, which are essentially Twitter lists, if you're used to using those. Blue Sky's feeds are exactly the same. They are pulled together lists of users who are sharing information about like-minded topics. I used to love Twitter lists. I remember kind of setting loads up for like influencers, journalists, social media brands I really liked, or, more down the kind of industry side of things as well. So there's quite a lot of organization that you can do to your Blue Sky feed, which I think is a really nice way that a user can own their experience in a social media app. So Blue Sky really did see a big rise in users once X started to move a lot of its features towards paid. We also have seen some pretty terrible moves by X in terms of getting rid of a lot of their moderation teams. Colloquially, I hear a lot of people saying, we just don't feel our brand is safe on X from controversial content or content that could be, overtly kind of political, hateful. So yeah, X is a bit of a scary place to be for many of us. And that is where we began to see Blue Sky really take speed in terms of its growth. Because on Blue Sky, it is, as I explained, decentralized and community led. It's open source. Users can create their own moderation rules as well. Users can also build their own algorithms. And there are currently no ads. And Blue Sky have said that they currently don't plan to have ads either. That could, of course, change. I mean, we've seen plenty of organizations make U-turns, particularly in the social media world. So we'll see how that goes. But at the moment, it does feel quite clean and quite easy to navigate because there aren't kind of distracting ads all the time in your feed. I also, like I said, really love that opportunity to kind of move around anything that you've pinned and really kind of own that user experience. Also, the Blue Sky culture is quite different to other social media platforms. Now, this year, more than any other year that I remember in social media, a lot of people have been complaining that they're not seeing as much referral traffic from social media as they used to. Platforms like Facebook have begun to downgrade referring traffic from their platform to websites. There's a lot of chat and rumors around whether if you put a link in a post on LinkedIn, whether that does affect how much referring traffic you then get to your website and whether that affects the post. Interesting to see the head of Blue Sky, who's called Jay, who you can follow. She has said that Blue Sky doesn't downgrade links. You can choose your own algorithm from among thousands, and the whole app is open source. This keeps it a free and open platform by design, leading to better click-through rates and traffic to your site. So that's really interesting that they are separating themselves from other social media platforms by saying, we don't downgrade links. We like links. Keep posting links on the platform. And so that's really interesting. I think that's definitely something to test as marketers, whether you are seeing clicks coming through from your links shared on Blue Sky and how many compared to other platforms where you're traditionally sharing links back to your websites and important campaigns. So why does Blue Sky matter for charities then? Well, there are a few groups of people who have been fairly active so far on Blue Sky, and those include political figures. So we are seeing quite a lot of people talking about politics, whether that's journalists, whether that's political figures themselves, whether that's members of parliament on the app as well. We're seeing more news organizations and publications moving over to Blue Sky, or at least having a Blue Sky platform as well as what they currently have in their mix. And we've also seen a lot of academics and researchers using a Blue Sky as well to kind of share some of their work. So it's really interesting to see that, as you can see on the right-hand side, some of these individuals and organizations have actually seen huge growth on the platform. I'm particularly interested in the CEO of Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust here, Debbie Tan, MBE, who's managed to amass nearly 7,000 followers there on Blue Sky. And I think this is a fantastic use of Blue Sky and actually sharing kind of her own take on some of the campaigns and some of the work that the organization is doing. Obviously, advocating and campaigning for the climate and also being able to engage directly with some of those key stakeholders that matter. So that was a, nice example to include actually that by going about Blue Sky in perhaps a more individual way is also certainly something I'd consider, particularly if your organization is quite open to employee advocacy and using some of your key leadership staff as those advocates and faces of the brand for thought leadership content, but also lobbying individuals, political figures, and also discussing things with journalists too. So again, if you've worked in social media for a while, you'll kind of recognize this behavior as very much being early stage Twitter behavior. I remember back in the day when I was training to be a journalist, I used Twitter a lot to engage with other journalists, and it was really like a hub of journalists and news on Twitter back in the day. Now, there are, of course, still a lot of people using X, but I think certainly thinking about researching whether the sorts of stakeholders and individuals that you need to connect with are on Blue Sky would be a good research task to do between now and perhaps in January as well. So who is on Blue Sky in terms of the charities, the organizations, the kind of the big names? So you can see there's a lot. And actually, although a lot of them are definitely early stage on Blue Sky, so most are under 10K followers, actually engagement is a lot higher than what I see them posting on X as well. So Blue Sky does tend to get higher engagement because of what I mentioned earlier around it being much more of a nurtured community with higher quality users, people who are genuinely interested in your campaigns and stories rather than bots. So it certainly is a place where you can envisage more conversation happening and seeing things like more reposts and more likes than platforms like X. So there are a few advantages of getting your organization set up if you haven't already. The first is that because it's a smaller community in comparison to platforms like X and Threads, it's easy to stand out. So as I showed you on the previous slide, even though those organizations who are already using Blue Sky have fewer than 10K followers, they actually are pretty prominent on Blue Sky in certain feeds. And if you kind of search for keywords around climate charity, climate organization, or wildlife or nature, a lot of them come up right at the top of the search. So you do have that early adopter advantage. Of course, there is that huge value alignment as well with nonprofits who are seeking to move away from platforms like X due to concerns over that content moderation that I mentioned earlier, the rise of misinformation, which I think is going to get even worse next year with more and more synthetic AI content, and generally a toxic environment. I mean, X has had this reputation for seeing a rise in hate speech or not safe for work content. And I think that is going to get worse. So Blue Sky is working hard at their moderation tools. So I do feel like there is a nice alignment there with values. Also, as I've already said, that niche community connection. So customizable feeds really allow you to easily find and engage with highly relevant audiences and professionals as well. Also, finally, we know that posting links is very, very important, particularly for visibility of your campaigns, visibility for petitions, fundraising, and those links are not being downgraded by Blue Sky. So, for those of you that haven't already got a profile set up, how do you go about that? Well, by default, Blue Sky usernames end with the BSky So bsky.social suffix. So you can see everybody that shared a URL today in the chat, and thank you so much for doing that, has got the username .bsky.social at the end. You can set your website as your username in account settings as well if you want to. You can verify yourself. You can use that QR code if you want to find that website directly, or you can go into your settings on BlueSky and change your handle as well. So if you do have your own domain, you can use that as your handle if you want to, which lets you self-verify your own identity. I think the majority of people do use the .bluesky.social suffix at the end. That seems to be the most common. So I'd probably start with that and then, maybe think about moving towards having your own domain as the back end of your username in the future if BlueSky is working well for you. So quite similar again to early stage Twitter. You can see here profiles have that profile picture, which should be your logo, your cover image, which you can choose to be something impactful, perhaps something seasonal or something that relates to a current campaign. You can pin a post. As you can see at the top there from these examples of National Trust and RSPB. And of course, you can get that blue tick if you are a verified organisation with a custom domain as well, which you can see National Trust is there. They have at nationaltrust.org.uk as their username. I would also recommend using a simple bio with a link to your website, or if you're using a link provider tool like Linktree, perhaps this is another great place to put that in there, although I would encourage that your Linktree is cleared out. I think most of us now don't really scroll past sort of 6 or 7 buttons on Linktree. So if you've got more than that, I think it's definitely time for a bit of a clear out. And then you can head into your feeds using the fifth tab along there called feeds, which allows you to find those feeds directly. So in April this year, BlueSky did introduce a new form of verification, which came after some feedback from users saying a larger visual signal would be useful in knowing which accounts are authentic. Obviously, a lot of misinformation going around on the internet, so it would be useful to have, a very big badge next to people's names. So they took this feedback on board. And additionally, through their trusted verifiers feature, select independent organizations can verify accounts directly. So essentially, you can be verified by somebody else, or you can also request a verification from BlueSky as well. So none of this kind of wait lists or applying and then not hearing anything, which is something we've definitely seen from other social media platforms. So you can apply to become a trusted verifier where you give other people verification on the BlueSky website as well. Interesting to see here, again, another example, Greenpeace, who are using their BlueSky account very actively as well. So I would recommend going and having a look at some of these charities that I've mentioned here today if you're looking for inspiration on how to get started. So let's now talk a little bit about content strategy. You have a maximum of 300 characters per post, so that's already more than X, which is 240. But 300 characters is still fairly limited. You need to be direct, clear, and concise. Remember, people just don't want to read a big chunk of text anymore online. If you are going to tell a bit more of a story through your post, I would do that by separating and formatting out your caption. So you've got short paragraphs or short line breaks, maybe a bit of formatting like lists, perhaps even using a couple of emojis to help separate out some of that text, but not too many, otherwise it just looks like an AI post. You can also use threads. So threads as in the original type of content format, not Threads, the social media platform. You can see here over on the right-hand side, National Trust has posted a very short kind of headline, spot what's missing, and then they've threaded a bit more information underneath by simply commenting on their own post. So that would be best practice in terms of posting that kind of longer feed. Avoid just dropping links and running. I think that's very much an old school social media strategy now, isn't it? You've got to engage with the community by responding to comments, resharing relevant content from others, and genuinely participating in the conversations around your cause. So, dedicating a little bit of time just to kind of having a browse. So I like to kind of plug in time in my diary where I'm actually just going to comment on other people's content for 10 minutes or so. It's quite a nice thing to do if you're on the move, if you commute, or if you've just got a moment with a fresh cup of coffee or something and you can just head on to BlueSky on your phone and just jump into some of those pre-organized feeds that you're following. As we said, links are highly visible. So I'd imagine that if they're not already, links are an opportunity for you to drive more content, more traffic, back to your website. BlueSky does also support short form video now as well. And also, it's worth noting that you can certainly contribute to conversations very easily. And being authentic seems to be a great strategy for growth as well. So you can see here just some more examples of content. So obviously there was a huge amount of chat around celebrity traitors. You can see people are using hashtags on the platform. I'm my thoughts on hashtags are, we kind of are moving a little bit past that phase where we're sort of hashtagging everything. They're starting to be seen, certainly by social media consultants, as a bit of an old hat strategy now because it's more about the words you use in your posts and whether those words are important keywords that are searchable and discoverable. So I probably wouldn't be focused too much on hashtags on the platform. However, you can see here that butterfly conservation were using a very, very popular talking point at the time of celebrity traitors. You can see here we've got a few GIFs. We've got some very kind of direct, eye-catching graphics being used. Also kind of asking questions, asking people to get involved in the conversation is a fantastic strategy as well, something that has always worked very well, again, on Twitter. So kind of moving what you've seen work there in the past over to BlueSky would be a suggestion. And then you can see here, like showing people, showing volunteers, showing your ambassadors, showing the people that work behind the organization always works well in social media as also. One thing I will note if you're just getting started, or even if you've been on BlueSky for a while, is a feature which launched last year called starter packs. So starter packs are kind of pre-made lists that you can just click follow all, or you can individually go through and follow. And starter packs are great ways of kind of finding an organization, like in this case, Amnesty International, heading to their starter packs in their final tab. And then you get to see kind of who they've put together on this list. So it might be their global staff, or it might be their kind of favorite news sources, or it could be a list of their ambassadors. So that's actually a really lovely way just to kind of start following quite a lot of people, just to kind of widen your feeds and widen your awareness as well. And obviously, if you start following other people, they're likely to come and check you out. So make sure you've got a bit of content live already so that when people come and check out your platform on BlueSky, it's not just an empty blank space. You can create your own starter packs as well. So if you want to put together a list of all of your kind of subsidiary groups or partner organizations or even staff, that would work very nicely for people to come in and kind of take a look at that. And you could also share that as a post too. You could say, we've just put together a starter pack as well. Love Jennifer's comment there. Looking through Blue Sky reminds me how much I loved old Twitter in the day. I used to love it loads 10 years ago. I'm the same, Jennifer, as well. I miss it. So, yeah, it definitely does feel like Blue Sky has managed to plug a gap in terms of that. And I've got to be honest, I know a few of you have said this already that they haven't really dedicated that much time to Blue Sky. And that's actually on my list of 2026 to-dos is to spend more time on Blue Sky because I do think it's these kind of smaller, more engaged community apps that are going to see huge growth in 2026. And that is where we're going to find some really juicy conversations or new supporters or interesting campaigns that we can kind of talk about and shout about and share. You can see here just a few feeds that we have discovered recently that we are really enjoying. So UK Ocean News is a good feed to go and have a look at. Birds is also a nice feed. You can see climate change, sciences. And finally, we've also just got news as well, which is was quite a general one. Depends how much of the world news you actually want to see. So those would be our recommendations. Okay, I'm going to open the floor to Q&A in just a moment. I know that quite a few of you have been leaving some questions, which is great. I just wanted to, before I do, just flag a couple of things from Avocado Social, which is the name of my consultancy. So for 2026, we have definitely identified that there is a need for more social media communities for us to all be part of, particularly those of you that work remotely or freelance or just need a bit of social media support. Maybe you're a team of one or social media is just a small part of your role. So we do offer a membership, which is launching in January. We've been running this as a bit of a beta test this year and had some great feedback. So our Avocado Social 2026 membership, which at the moment, the core membership is on offer until the 19th of December. You can get it for just £300 for the whole year. And that gives you access to 12 expert-led workshops by me. So we're covering a wide range of topics next year, including paid advertising, employee advocacy, and all of the platforms. You also get access to our monthly social media update briefings, which are 45-minute long webinars just telling you about the latest news. And we also are launching a WhatsApp community, which is all about the latest social media news, tips, Q&A, and also there's a space to share problem solving and jobs as well. We also have our premium membership, which offers you an hour with me as well each month. So if you want to do some problem solving or some training or demos together, we could look at your analytics or I can give you some content ideas, then that is the sort of thing that we follow in our hour-long monthly calls. So that's our Avocado Social membership. We actually do have a QR code if you want to find out more about that. Everything is on our website, including all of the topics for our 12 expert-led events coming up next year. And if you've got any questions about that, you are very welcome to get in touch directly with me. My email address is on screen right now, or you can contact through the website, Avocado Social. So that's my little spiel all about me and the work that we do at Avocado Social. But for now, let's head back into your all-important Q&A. So heading into the Q&A then, I can see we started with Carolina. She said, how relevant or helpful is Blue Sky currently for academics or inter-institutional collaborations? I definitely think there's opportunity there because I've certainly come across lots of academics using it to promote their blogs or their research. I think what I'd probably start by doing is having a bit of an audit around whether any academics that you are aware of are using Blue Sky. So do a bit of research. Maybe this could be a project as well for perhaps an intern. If you've got any interns, to have a good look at through Blue Sky and see if they can find a good list of people that they would recommend you started following, and then seeing which other institutions are on Blue Sky too. But it certainly seems like a place where people are much more up for having those kind of open conversations with each other. And partnership seems to definitely be part of the community ethos on Blue Sky. Okay, so we also have a question here from an anonymous attendee who says, I cross-post between X and Blue Sky, and I've noticed that I'm less likely to get the viral runaway success on a post on Blue Sky. Is that because of how the algorithm is set up? And if so, how can we post more, get more, how can a post get more success? So I think on Blue Sky, definitely I would investigate kind of how your posts perform when different engagement metrics happen on them. So if a post gets more comments, do you find that it gets more views? Or if a post gets more clicks, do you find that it gets more views, more reach? So I would do a bit of testing to see, what is it that you can post or you can create that does get that high engagement. Obviously, when you say viral runaway success, a post which might look successful on X might not necessarily be the same metric. It might not translate over to Blue Sky. For example, on X, you can get a lot of impressions on your content. So you can get hundreds of thousands of impressions, but is that a genuine person? Is it high quality views? Those are questions to ask yourself. Whereas if you look over on Blue Sky, you might get much, much smaller reach, but the people that are seeing it could be the decision makers, the stakeholders, the people that are actually clicking through to your website. So it really depends on which metrics you're looking at to compare those two platforms. Ewan said, I expected a mass migration of academics and researchers to Blue Sky from X, but this plateaued quickly. Concurrently, I have noticed increasing science community on LinkedIn where engagement is better. Is this your experience? So I think Blue Sky definitely goes through kind of peaks and troughs in terms of when it does get a bit of big migration. It really depends on when people kind of get a bit maybe fed up with X. Blue Sky's still quite small, so I do think there's going to have to be either some, big influential people joining it next year that will bring along a lot of followers with them, or they need to build their awareness a bit more in the social media mix. Interesting to see brands like TikTok saw major success when they did huge kind of billboard and TV advertising. Same with ChatGPT. I mean, if you go to London at the moment, ChatGPT billboards are just everywhere. So they're investing a lot in their mass awareness, which I haven't seen anything from Blue Sky yet. So that would be interesting if they did go for more of a kind of advertising campaign. I think in terms of LinkedIn, again, engagement goes up and down all the time on LinkedIn. But I do think LinkedIn is an incredibly useful and important platform to be on, particularly if you're doing it from an individual's account. And I can see there that you've mentioned you're looking at academics and researchers specifically. So that's why I can imagine that they're seeing success on LinkedIn because they are kind of thought leaders or innovators or sharing ideas. And that kind of content works very well from a personal profile on LinkedIn at the moment. So yeah, it's all change all the time on all of the social media platforms. Okay, I can't say the word anonymous. An anonymous question has come in. What's your advice on tracking analytics for Blue Sky? I use a mixture of two free tools called BSky Hub and Blue Sky Insights currently, but they aren't official, so no idea how accurate they are. We receive excellent engagement, but I really want to show stakeholders the impact. So that to me is an area where Blue Sky themselves really do need to improve. I think having a robust native analytics area in your app is kind of a must have, particularly for us marketers who are always looking to prove the value. So I haven't used either of those kind of insight tools that you've mentioned. So again, I don't know how accurate they are either. I would probably continue using them for now, just so that you are gathering a level of data that you can compare it to. And once Blue Sky has something more robust and official themselves, which I'm sure they will, then you can kind of migrate over to those. I would also be looking at website traffic. So if Blue Sky is not downgrading links in the way they say they're not, how is that affecting your referring traffic? So using tools like Google Analytics for is great for having a look to see how much traffic is actually coming to your website. I'm not a huge fan of GA4 in terms of its usability. I miss the good old days of the simple Google Analytics. But once you've kind of got the hang of what you need to click on and where you need to go, it is quite easy to then see which websites are sending your website traffic. And that is something I would definitely have a look at. Ruben says, is it likely that bots will just take over Blue Sky like other channels? Potentially. It does seem like Blue Sky are very like on top of their moderation and are very protective of their community, unlike other social platforms that are just chasing the numbers in terms of users and views. So I think they do seem much more committed to do things differently this time. And again, I think that's where the values can align very nicely with some of you non-profits as well. How can you decipher when to make something into a thread or just a simple post? I think length, really. I think I would sort of have a play around with taking a post where you've got quite a lot of text, quite a lot of characters. Maybe do one where it's all in one and do one where it's a thread. I think threads work very well if you're kind of telling a story, if you can use a little bit of ellipsis or maybe a bit of a hook at the beginning and tell more of the facts or figures or story throughout. And if you've got more than one photo to attach to each of your posts as well, that often makes for a very visually stimulating thread as well. Okay, I'm going to take one more question, or maybe two. Let's see how many we can fit in the next 3 minutes. Um, Is there a way to schedule posts? I don't believe so at the moment. That might be something they're working on. Most of the social media platforms have, in the last couple of years, introduced their own kind of inbuilt schedulers. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the same on Blue Sky. However, there are third-party tools that allow you to schedule on Blue Sky, like I think Katie's just mentioned Buffer. I'm pretty sure you can do it on Hootsuite. Loomly, I think was mentioned earlier. Sprout Social often are the ones that kind of get that extra feature first. HubSpot as well. So basically, Blue Sky opened up their capabilities to allow social media scheduling tools to post content to them. So you can use a third-party tool for that. Okay, and then I think I'll take one more question. I quite like the way this one's going. So, in an age of increasing polarization, is there a risk that progressive communities and organizations moving to Blue Sky just exacerbates our echo chambers? Is there a way we can use Blue Sky that doesn't increase polarization, or should we just acknowledge its strengths in mobilizing our base? Maybe social media was never the place to build bridges. Um, that's a really interesting question. I think I probably would never advise a client or an organization to be invested in just one community. So I certainly think Blue Sky is something to test in your 2026 strategies, but I would not recommend kind of pausing activity on some of the other social media sites, particularly some of the larger ones. I think it's good to have a mixture of presences in social media, particularly if they're kind of owned by different people as well, because you don't want to kind of invest everything you have in one community and then for it to kind of shut down or be taken over the next day. So I would be kind of spreading yourself so that you can get the word out there. Okay, we have come to the end of our session then. So thank you so much for such wonderful conversation, chat, and questions. I really appreciate that. And enjoy the rest of your Communicate conference. See you soon.